Lyft is working on and getting ready to release a bunch of new features for drivers. Some of them pretty creative, I gotta say. So, first off, the main title of this article is Lyft is bringing rider verification to the entire nation. So, this past summer, Lyft began testing its driver verification program in 9 cities. Now, the feature will be available nationwide and it mirrors Uber's own verification system. I've already done a video about that. Basically, it works kind of similar to most apps when riders' names are cross-referenced against a database they ensure of who they are and who they say they are, right? So riders can upload photos of government IDs to enroll. Ideally, verified identities will make drivers feel safer picking up complete strangers in their cars. Because I actually just did a video literally yesterday about how Uber's now working on a feature that was released in India for women drivers. Women drivers can select having only women passengers to make them feel more safe when driving, like say, especially on Friday and Saturday nights. And I think it's a good idea because when it comes to a lot of Uber and Lyft safety, most of the time is geared towards passengers. And in some ways I get that because for a lot of people taking an Uber or Lyft, they're in an altered state, they may be inebriated. So I think that's the reason why, because, Uber and Lyft drivers are of course sober. At least they should be when driving, right? So I feel like this is a thing that is good for drivers because a lot of times I feel like there's not enough safety features for drivers. So the verification program is one of the first things that Lyft is doing, right? But here's the other ones, which is kind of interesting. Lyft is also adding a few quality of life improvements. The app will now inform drivers if their passengers are in areas like bike or bus lanes. I think that's pretty good, right? Because sometimes that can be a bit of an issue, especially in a place here like LA. This is an issue where it's just tricky navigating it. In Boston, wasn't as much of an issue, but here in LA, I know for a lot of drivers, it's a bit tricky. Drivers in some places will also find out if a route goes through a school or traffic enforcement. Another good thing to know. I think especially for like a school zone, maybe they could reroute it or something like that. Because if, let's say, it's 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or during the week, dealing with the school zone traffic can be a nightmare. Additionally, this is kind of interesting. Lyft is piloting a restroom finder for drivers. And like Uber and Waze, it's also implementing real-time road alerts that allow drivers to mark accidents, heavy traffic, or road closures. Gotta say, loving all the ideas. The article didn't mention this, and I do kind of agree that Lyft is quote-unquote still trying to catch up to Uber. I feel mixed about that. They did mention that as like a brief tagline on the article. I feel like that there are sometimes Lyft unveils a feature and I'm like, oh, I'm a huge fan of this and Uber doesn't do it, and then vice versa, right? So I feel like the apps, each one, even though Uber and Lyft, when people ask me like, what's the difference? They're pretty much the same. I mean, as a driver, sometimes they pay differently, and as a passenger, sometimes they charge you differently. But there are some slight nuances, some slight differences, right? And I know, for example, as one quick example, Lyft got rid of Lyft Share or Lyft Pool or Lyft Line, excuse me, is what it was called way back in the day. I think that's a great idea because I'm not gonna lie, I feel like Uber Pool, UberX Share, I feel like it's just not what it used to be, especially when you look at the pricing now. Like Uber Pool back in the day used to be significantly cheaper than regular Uber. Now it's like you save like 5% off. You save like 50 cents or something like that. And you get extra Uber credit if you happen to pick somebody up. It's just not as worth it. I feel like shared rides in the ride sharing world almost seems to be like I don't say a dead technology, but like a dead feature that just was prevalent back in the day. Now, not as much. Now, moving towards this though, on the driver verification, I think this is a really, really good idea. Verification on both ends. In terms of the passenger verification that makes it safer for drivers. I think this is a really good feature. I know verification has been around for a lot of apps. I know even dating apps do this now, which makes sense. Dating apps like Tinder and Hinge and other ones do verification now to make sure you are who you say you are, to make people feel a lot more safe and a lot more comfortable on the apps. Same thing now when it comes to Uber and Lyft, right? Same thing. And I think especially, like I said, for drivers, this is big because I do feel like, and again, I kind of get it, that in the past, Uber and Lyft has really favored the safety of the passengers. And I kind of get it. Like I said, if, let's say, a passenger gets in the car, the Uber and Lyft driver is operating the vehicle. They can bring the passenger wherever they want to go, right? They are typically sober. The passenger sometimes, especially on a Friday and Saturday night, might be inebriated or in an altered state of mind. So I do get why Uber and Lyft seem to really harp a lot on the safety of passengers specifically, but now it makes sense that for drivers, of course, there's an extra thing when it comes to verification, right? In addition, in case you didn't know, there are a lot of safety features within the Uber app and also the Lyft app. I've done a bunch of videos about that. There's a lot of features, whether it's showing your friends and family where you are and sharing your location in real time, contacting 911, having the apps record your audio, right? And I do suggest for all my Uber drivers and Lyft drivers, get a dash cam. So things are getting better, I think, for ride-sharing safety overall. Now, these other unique features, in terms of giving more descriptive information about a bike or bus lane, a school zone, traffic stuff going on, I think that's good. I think it just helps out drivers because, like say, in some cases, you might want to reroute. If, like, say, you're driving and typically the fastest way is through a school zone, but school is getting out, you might want to avoid that completely. So I feel like pretty good features. The bathroom one, though, is the one that I'm most interested about. I got to be honest. I feel like that one's creative because that is one that's a bit, I hate to use this word, but almost more taboo, right? Saying like, oh, well, drivers have to go to the bathroom. And I've done videos actually about like issues because as a driver, it's kind of this paradox where it's like, okay, well, you want to drink water and coffee like a normal human being. You want to consume liquid, but then you don't want to have to be stopping and going to the bathroom constantly. And when you're driving in a city, and like say you're in a peak time in a peak city, you want to be able to pop in somewhere and go to the bathroom. It can be a bit of a nightmare, right? It can be a bit of a nightmare and a bit tricky, I will say that, and almost taboo. So one pro tip I do have, I did this in my Uber Pro Tip and Lyft Pro Tip series, which I haven't really done a video in a while, actually, not Pro Tip series, is bathroom addresses. So what I suggest to a lot of drivers out there is when you're driving and like say you find like a very easily accessible bathroom, one that you can pop in and out, one that like say maybe parking is a little bit easier, to basically put that in your notes. Like when I got done driving in Boston before I moved here to LA, I had a notes page or on my notes app on my iPhone, I had like 10 different bathroom addresses, maybe 5 to 10, where they were all around Boston, depending on what area I was in. Not only did I have the address, but I also had the code. So like say it was a Starbucks bathroom that was very easy, I'd also put the code like 4751 or whatever the code was. And that way when I drive there, let's say I was close, park, go to the bathroom, I already have the code, pop it in now, continue driving. So I do feel like this could be a very interesting idea. But this is one of anything. It was a quick sentence, right? They just said they're piloting a restaurant finder for drivers. What I'm curious about with this one, that's probably to me actually what jumped out the most in the article, is one, it's kind of nice that they're at least addressing it because that is a bit of a taboo thing. Like I know some drivers, like especially let's say a lot of male drivers who say, yeah, you know what? I have a bottle in the car and I know it sounds gross. I know it sounds unsanitary, but I have hand sanitizer. I have a bottle. If I'm desperate and I'm in a city and I can't find parking, I can't find a bathroom, if you got to go, you got to go, right? It's a bit of a taboo thing to talk about, but it is an issue that every driver faces, literally every single driver, right? Two, I'm curious, is this the kind of thing that will be like a partnership? Because as a bathroom finder, like let's say it's a Starbucks, to use that as an example. I don't know if the company or the location or whatever would be happy. I mean, you could argue it, right? Would they be happy about Lyft recommending their bathroom to its drivers? Saying, hey, you need to find a bathroom. Here's a really easy one. I could see some stores and some companies, whether you agree with it or not, saying, hey, wait a minute. Like Lyft, why are you telling all your drivers to come to our store and go to the bathroom? We're now getting, I'm not saying it's going to be a huge influx, but we're now getting more people popping in the store, using the bathroom and leaving right away. Like, does that mean that Lyft, again, like could Lyft just recommend random bathrooms without contacting the company ahead of time? I know it sounds like a weird thing to bring up, but I can kind of see some arguments from a company's perspective of them saying, wait a minute, Lyft didn't ask us, and now they're just recommending our restaurant, our store, our coffee shop, or whatever, our business, for drivers to just come in, use the bathroom, and leave. Does that mean Lyft would do partnerships with these businesses specifically about the bathroom? I mean, I know it sounds weird, but these are actually interesting questions because, again, this is such a taboo topic. I know that every driver does experience is having to go to the bathroom. And like I said, that's why I suggest as one pro tip to have bathroom addresses and even add the code in. But that's an interesting one. You know, they're piloting it, and I haven't seen anything yet, at least on my app. But I'm kind of curious to see on the other Lyft driver apps. Maybe someone has experienced it. Let me know what you think in the comments. How would that work? What would it be like? The logistics? Kind of an intriguing idea. But again, I gotta give Lyft credit. I feel like Lyft is trying to always do a lot of great things for their drivers. I do know Uber does have this too when it comes to, like, say, notifying drivers about, like, say, traffic or, like, say, some enforcement things going on, road alerts, that kind of stuff. So I feel like both apps have slowly been getting better for drivers. And usually when one app does something, usually the other follows suit. And like I said, sometimes Uber comes out with a great idea and I love it. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes Lyft comes out with a great idea. Sometimes not. I am a huge fan of David Reisher, the new CEO of Lyft as of last year. I think he's been doing an excellent job. So I feel like at least these features that have been talked about briefly with Lyft seem pretty good. But like I said, the bathroom one is the one that when I was reading this before filming this video, I was like, whoa. I was like, okay, good idea in theory. Because it's such a taboo thing. Every driver experiences it. It's an issue when it comes to driving for Uber and Lyft. It is an issue, right? It can be very, very inconvenient. But then you're like, how is that going to work in practicality? I don't know. But again, Lyft is, adding in all these features. Guess we'll have to see what happens.